you. I think that when we started recording when I was in G46, people's questions helped out a bunch. So talk up or speak up. I will try to talk softly.
We need a mic and a mic stand,
And I need a hood now too.
Yeah.
Cool. So are we live?
We are.
Awesome. So the first thing that we want to talk about are user stories or just project workflow in general. Who here has heard of Trello, Pivotal Tracker, Waffle.io? Cool. Somebody with your hand up, tell me one of those things and what are they?
Well, I've used Waffle.io, and it's like a way to organize your projects by putting everything in like a to-do list, and you can mark certain tasks as like important or to do or ask a question on it.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the cool things about Waffle.io is that it links directly with your GitHub. So if you create a GitHub project and you have collaborators, you can link that up with Waffle.io and you can start tracking your project. You can assign tasks and then mark them for complete. Pivotal Tracker, Trello board?
We use Trello, just like a project manager, so it helps you communicate with different teams to make sure that everybody has a set task and everyone's on track and can move things around and keep it organized.
Yes. Why is that important?
When you have a lot of moving parts, you need to be able to make sure that you're A, meeting deadlines, B, that everybody's on course with what they need to do, and it's a good way to stay organized.
Yeah, absolutely. As far as like agile workflow goes, we do our workflow in sprints. We do full features, half, not half-assed. So when it comes down to like laying out what we're going to be doing, it's important to think like in terms of all users and all aspects. Who's done Pivotal Tracker here? Yeah? What else is different between Pivotal Tracker, Trello board, and Waffle.io?
So it includes user stories and it builds the tasks off the user stories.
Yes.
Builds cards based off of user stories.
Yeah, I would say that Pivotal Tracker is like the traditional agile workflow user story tracking. Like you can set up a user story and you can set up tasks for that.
Looks like it's easier, I thought, to set up like checklists.
Yeah, actually, Pivotal Tracker is cool. I think that it looks kind of outdated. We used it when I was in school. All of them have a purpose. All of them basically achieve the same effect. Whichever one you like more, I would encourage you to use, but also check them all out. So today, we're going to be looking at Trello. And I want to talk to you guys about creating a Reddit clone and like how is that going to be laid out. Who can give me a good definition of what a user story is?
So a user story would be like the smallest possible chunk of work on a project, put out in plain terms, and then there would be like sections of technical requirements and sections of like non-technical requirements. So the goal is like when I did them was to bridge between people who did not understand writing code and the coders and make sure that they had a shared understanding of what the end result should look like and a shared spot to go and put comments in the user story if we went off track.
Yeah, so a few good points there. One is user stories are not specifically for developers. They're for all parts of the project. So like you would have your front-end team, your UX, your UI, your product manager, your scrum master, any of those people all being assigned user stories. Have you guys done, like, I think that the inbox had like some user stories you followed. Have you guys done other projects where you have to like follow a list of things to do?
No,
Like from a user perspective?
That's kind of the biggest one.
Eats there was something like that, but it wasn't emphasized when we did it.
Word. Cool. So Friday for sure there will be user stories, and Thursday probably. Friday we'll be working in a group. What I want, let's see. Who here is not participating? Raise your hand if you're not participating. Cool. All right, so I'm going to divide you guys up into groups. Let's say 5 minutes, and from like y'all's perspective, what are the most important user stories or just any user stories in creating Reddit? So also raise your hand if you don't know what Reddit is. The reason why I'm using Reddit is it follows the exact same pattern as every single other social media platform. You'll have a user, you'll have comments, and you'll have posts. And that's basically the same model all the way through. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, you name it. So if you were gonna sit down and from start to finish create a Reddit clone, I wanna start getting user stories from all of you. So let's say you three, UFO. How did you two end up next to each other again? Word. You four, and we'll join up this table. So we'll put 5 minutes on the clock, and I want you guys to think in terms of MVP, so minimum viable product. At the end of the day, someone gives you money, and after 2 weeks of a sprint, you have to come to this person and say, hey, here's what I have. What's the most important thing you think for like a deliverable product is? It was an awful sentence.
Go. So you guys keep recording, right? Mm-hmm. Just your chatter. And us talking. Some chatter.
Yeah. That's good. To go. I would start by saying, here are all the sections that you can once you have the section. I want to write I don't need music. Not necessarily all the sections, but not trying to just do like this. Let's say
Always makes me nervous when I have like a test suite for a file or like a class, and I make a boatload of changes to it in one part, and then all the tests still pass, and I'm like, oh,
that's not supposed to happen. What did I do wrong?
I know, right? I think it's just because it's testing some other part I didn't have. Anyways, it's fine.
It's nice when you scroll all the way down, it like flashes at you to let you know it's the end.
Yeah.
You want me to count out?
You are too. Damage is down.
Oh, I can fix it really easy.
Step one is like user visits. So like the stuff style that based on which would be like are we creating the actual stories right now? Are you talking about what? And then
yeah, if you do it in terms of stories, that's great. If you use as a user, I want X, Y, and Z, we're going to go through as a class and see what they come up with. Most people have a really hard time writing user stories. It just takes time. It's also cool to see how what everyone thinks is important versus not.
So as soon as I go to Reddit, so like a user story would be like, internet happens. I want to see that internet happens. Yeah, it's going down. We can avoid the ads.
As we all, I'm really excited. Yeah.
Warm and stinky.
Yeah. Is there any? Are we not allowed to crowd doors?
No, like I'm used to it.
I think it was a food.
Yeah, well, nobody. There's not like a vacate period for lunch. Everybody that comes in and eats and works.
And I think it's populated content, things that are hot.
So, Peter, eventually we're going to get to creating ERDs for this. When I have them go through that, do you just want to talk about primary key relationships for building these tables? Cool. Sweet.
Triple guns. Oh my god, it's a staple.
Have you ever seen The Good, the Bad, the Ugly?
Yes. Yeah.
Have you ever played Red Dead Redemption 2?
Yeah, beat it.
Did you really?
There's a whole scene though.
I just thought of like the scene in The Office when they're like playing that dumb game.
Yeah.
What are they turning and talking about?
User stories for Reddit.
Dope.
I got quiet.
Cool. Take a few more seconds and wrap up your conversation. Chisel, can you just take a markdown file real quick? You working on aliases?
I was. Oh wow, I have two.
Cool. All right. Brandon, is that Baja Blast in there?
Slurp juice or
Staying. So we'll just go clockwise. And what I want you guys to do is give me a few user stories, or if you have an MVP, at the end of the day, what is like the minimum viable product, the most important thing that you have to ship out as a user story. We're also going to talk about formatting for user stories and all of that afterwards. I just want people to be able to share their opinion and see what everyone else came up with.
Yeah, so I'll go, I guess. We talked about like breaking it down into as small aspects as possible, not a minimal viable product as much.
Yeah.
So it was like set up the files in React, like initialize your React thing, build the files, build the repo would be a starting point. Maybe take some fake data and build it out in just having what looks like posts unstyled, and then commit that, push it, then move it and style those posts to look at specific prompts of like, here's what one link should look like, that would be a ticket. Here's what the header should look like, that would be a ticket, like set it all the way up. And so that's the process we were going through.
Cool. Right on. Did you have like a formatted user story as a user X, Y, and Z?
No, we didn't. But we just more were covering different topics. And
Cool.
about the concept.
So,
yeah, we just broke it down to the basic things that we needed to kind of like have this web page here. Just like have a login and have a login, log out, user experience, database that holds information, functional front end, be able to post content, have ad space for funding the paid version to get ads out, have filters so that you're able to filter your content more what you want to see as a user, media support, and what does that say? The currency system, because they have like Reddit coins and stuff.
Cool. That is a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I would say our MVP is making a post/thread available to the public.
So as a user, I want to be able to create a post without having a login.
Well, there's also login functionality, creating a user, being able to post a thread, opening threads, search bar, comment threads, report abuse/spam, voting up and down threads, favoriting threads for easier access proving back to, attaching media and posts, etc.
Cool. Right on. Next.
Yeah, we kind of had similar processes there. We have users can go to the site and view posts. Posts are clearly demarcated. Users can log in, users can sign up. Users can search through posts. You can sort, users can sort based on popularity, location, trending topics. Users can create a post, share a post, they can save a post, comment on a post, view comments, upload, download, subscribe to subreddits, and personalize their Reddits.
Okay, cool. You guys are all one group, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you guys are all one group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for ours, we didn't get that far, but our first step was user visits reddit.com/ for like the root, and then after that, users should see a list of posts, sort, and you can sort them based on like location and hotness, popularity. But when the user first visits the site, it should start with hot and in all 50 states of the United States.
Okay, cool. So this is like a lot of stuff. You guys all dove super deep into like what Reddit is at its core. And it's not just one thing. There are a lot of tasks to set out and try to accomplish. What I want each group to do now is to refactor what you have here into a user story, a few that you think are the most important, like at its base. And you should use the format as a user, I want to be able to, or as a user, I can, so on and so forth. Also, the way to start like planning out a project like this is 100% just getting everything down on paper. Don't try to think in terms of a user story for everything you're writing down in the beginning. Just get it all out, and then go back and start refactoring in order of importance. So that's what we're going to do now. And then again, we're going to compare who thinks what is more important. And again, try to make sure it's in the format of as a user. And I'm unsure how long. Let's say 3 minutes, and if people need more time, we can bump it up.
I think
I really like the wax canvas with rubber interior. It's like fully waterproof, which that might be. But they're just like a box bag. We were talking about this maybe.
I'm in Togo forever. So we'll go user stories, MVP, and then we'll talk about ERDs. Have you touched on them like, at all?
ERDs? Yeah.
So they should know one-to-many or many-to-many. Like, be aware that it exists.
Should be aware. More like they know primary key, what a foreign key is, and then a foreign key is I didn't really go into like one-to-many. I just kind of like left that because it was the first one.
So what I'm going to do after this is we're going to pick their user stories apart when they give them to us. And then continuously in the groups, I'm going to have them like make an ERD. So how you're going to table what you think there needs to be, and we'll come up with whatever that looks like. We'll compare them. And then when we go through everybody's, Peter, you can dive a little deeper into like how you can come up with. I think Patrick talked about this. He was doing it with Chad. And Chad, and you came up with like 8 or 10 tables. Right? It all depends on how like you want to format your data. Is that up or down? Counting up or down?
Counting up.
the second one is
I guess the second one should be
That JavaScript sticker is dope.
Thanks. I was stoked on it. I cut it a little bit not straight, which bothers me, but what am I gonna do?
You were right.
I mean, I tried. I didn't have a ruler on hand. I just had scissors, which are straight. But still, somehow.
I don't know how easy is this.
Neither do I when I look at it. I stop being able to see it. As soon as I focus on it, it goes away.
From back here, it's really rough. Where we at? I'm gonna do a lap.
Do you guys have user stories? Yep, we have one. User should.
You guys have a stopping point? Word. Oh, excuse me. All right. So we'll go in reverse order. Last but not least, starting off first right now. What do you guys got?
So we did, users should see trending posts sorted by the hot filter in all 50 states of the United States. And then users should see a vote and downvote buttons, a vote count, correct crumb, text content, and optional images in each post. You went too deep? Too deep?
Yeah, can you give me a digestible version of, so the idea behind user stories is you can have it, like a whole bunch of tasks can end up coming out from a user story. So like I want to be able to post to a database, like there is a whole bunch of things you need to do to set that up. But like at its core, maybe that is what you're trying to accomplish. So you want to get granular, but you don't need to be like specific about the tasks in there.
Oh, like, I mean, to me, it would just be like, I want to see what's the most popular thing on the internet when I log in, or when I go to this URL.
Cool. As a user, I want to see the most popular posts on Reddit without having to log in. Sweet. What are some things that, like, how can we break that down a little bit further? Because Reddit has to exist. So if you're creating Reddit, like you had to have created the database, you have to create the front end for it. As a user, I want to be able to come to a clean landing page that pulls data from wherever and shows me all the most popular posts. Yeah, cool. I like that.
So we're going down to a user can view posts, they can create posts, the prompt to log in or sign up, and they can vote and comment on posts.
So that sounded like a few user stories. How would you say each one of those, or just format it a little better?
Well, you could say, as a user, I want to be able to view posts.
View posts.
As a user, I want to be able to create a post. And then to caveat off of that, because you can't create a post without logging in, so I think as a user, I need to know, or be prompted, have several login points.
Yeah.
And then the next one can be like, you know, I want to get to that point, then you can comment and then vote down below.
Cool.
Or I guess interact with the post.
Right on.
That'd be a good way to put that.
So, we think that logging in is a necessary function of just getting your product shipped for Reddit?
Yeah. No. Because it's not.
Do we think?
It's not. What do you call it? Like 4chan. It's Reddit. So they're like you have to log in or have some sort of thing. It's not anonymous.
Okay.
I don't think so. Because you can like go on it and just like read things and then click on it and read other people's posts and not have to say anything.
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't it depend on like the target demographic?
Yeah. What's the goal?
Yeah, so that's the point of this, is I would argue that like login functionality is not something that I would be super focused on, but if you want to build it in, it's something you have to plan for in advance. And what's interesting about user stories is it all comes down to personal opinion. What do I think is the most important thing? And both people can defend both points. The idea is, at the end of the day, what is MVP? Do I have to spend time figuring out auth and auth to be able to use Reddit? Or do I just want to create a database that I can go have a get all route and see everything without, as an anonymous user? Cool, nobody is wrong.
I guess my question is, wouldn't normally in like the real world, your stakeholder tell you what the minimum viable product is? And then you would work with them to construct user stories around, like you as the developer are not gonna go into most projects being like, here's what needs to ship. The marketing team is gonna be like, this is what we need, X, Y, and Z. And then you're gonna be like, well, how can you break this out into user stories is my impression.
Peter's not here. So in Agile, like in general, like you're consistently like retroing the process. And what a customer thinks they want or consumer thinks they want in the beginning doesn't always end up being what's best for them or what you can do. And the reason why we try to think about like as a user is we try to get that whole 360 perspective. If you build an application and do not user test it and nobody wants to use it, what's the point of building the application? So to try to get like that just global view is important. Maybe, I think it depends on whatever team you're going to, but the product and what the consumer and the buyer wants will change. And that's part of the Agile process, is being able to go through retro and change whatever you're going to deliver based on what you can actually do versus what needs to be done. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, we pretty much have the same, just the initial story would be to have a list of stories with their headlines populated so that a user can go to Reddit.com and see.
Cool. I like that. When you guys are doing user stories, try to like what the biggest thing that we'll see in group projects is groups will forget about CSS and styling in general. People like to get in and just code and then don't think about like any of the UX or UI. Make sure when you're writing that user story, as a user, I want to be greeted by like a clean, well-formatted, well-thought-out like landing page. When you go to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Reddit, it's all intuitive. Nobody's like reshaping or changing the mold. I can spend 5 seconds on a page and know exactly what I need to do without ever going there. Sweet.
Our group kind of had the same as them over there with as a user, I want to log in to the site, and as a user, I want to be able to make a post and or interact with organized content.
Okay, cool.
So we wrote read. As a user, when I visit reddit.com, I want to see a page with a list of links to most popular posts today. As a user, when I visit reddit.com, I want to see the option to sign up or log in to interact with the content should be obviously placed in the top right corner. As a user, when I'm logged in, I can successfully post, delete, update, upload, download, etc. on the site content.
Cool. Those user stories can all be broken up into smaller user stories, 100%. Don't confuse tasks with user stories. Like, I want to be able to upvote can be a user story that has a whole bunch of different tasks involved with it. You need to create like seeds that are able to hold the place value. You need to make sure it can like render on the front end. Maybe you're having like an arrow, or maybe you just have like a little Reddit dude. That's like what we want to start refactoring and thinking about. Like when you look at Reddit or Instagram, you don't really think about all of the depth that it takes to create this. But that's how we're going to start thinking. The other thing that you'll notice trend in user stories in general is this is going to start looking a lot the same for CRUD. As a user, I want to be able to create a post. I want to be able to update a post, delete a post, so on and so forth. So the next thing that I want you guys to do is take like all of the data you have or all of the information of the consensus, and I want you to start thinking about tables. So what, like we don't need to go super crazy in depth with it. You're not going to have that much time. But I want you guys to start thinking, how are you going to build this? How, like, what is your server going to look like? What is your database going to need? What are some values we use when we're building our database? Like, we'll need a string for the name. Maybe we're hashing a password, so on and so forth. Questions about? So I want you to build tables. I want you to format it with string, integer, whatever it's going to be, username, email, and lay it out like you would a database. This will be the first time I think that most of you have ever messed with multiple tables. So let's see what you guys can come up with. We'll do the relationships after this, but I just want you guys to start getting down. What is this table going to be? Is it a user table? Is it a messages table? Questions about that?
Yeah.
Kind of.
What's up?
I don't know how to ask it.
Sweet. If you don't know how to like format the tables, take like, so what you guys did with the class server was all just like the person table. At least start there. You know you're gonna have the user table.
Okay, right, yeah, so.
Yeah, does that help a little bit? Okay. Yeah, that's what we're gonna get to here. That's the idea. And we're gonna go into it. Like I don't expect everybody to just react accordingly.
I think that the top level probably be
5 minutes of pain.
because that.
Go back. Oh, stopwatch. I was like, you need to go back.
I know the secret shortcut.
You do. You got the moves. Baby, you got the only sweetest thing.
Yeah, so like for example, for each maybe for each thread, you can have like each thread would have to have one. But like the main like right? Theoretically, every story that is posted is probably right. So what I'm saying is like think about it as saying that. Right. So I'm just trying to show you we have like Reddit,
Another lolly?
No, just chew on the stick.
Is it still sweet?
I always do it with suckers or with toothpicks. I chew them until they're not there anymore.
Yeah.
I think it's funny when dogs lay down and eat. Like really, you can't get up.
I mean, that's how I like to eat.
Like
Like an otter?
Like an otter, yeah, I was gonna say. You can get the.
I'm just gonna break it down like a tree so that
You ever found a chiropractor to be worthwhile?
Never used one.
I went to one when I was working at a bar, and I honestly literally just injured my shoulder. And this guy tried to be like, I can cure your asthma. Shit. And he ended up like not really helping at all.
By
He
rubbing on my back?
He basically just like gave me a massage, which felt good, and that was nice. And like I got this sneaking suspicion that everyone was just there to pay for human contact.
It doesn't surprise
I
me.
come here because someone will touch me.
I just want somebody to be like, crack, just
Get it,
pop me in all the weird ways that I don't want to be popped.
Yeah. Do you want to do the back thing? Would you like to do that?
Just for this
Yeah,
one?
yeah.
It doesn't ever help. I think it is. I didn't mean to say that so dramatic. It doesn't ever help.
No, Peter.
But like, I've done that a bunch of times and it I never get enough pops, really. Same with like the lay and Exhaling and feel it on your stomach and somebody presses on either side of your spine.
It's not quite.
It
Doesn't feel
just
good.
nothing ever pops.
Huh. Yeah, I get
There's
pop.
like one or two, but like
It's not feel good.
no.
It's not
It's
feel
just
good.
like exactly. It's just like
Yeah.
yep, dude, do it.
There's one. Yay.
Sends a Slack notification to everybody on here.
Yeah.
So basically the issue is that I have a class analytics which receives a method track, and I'm testing that it has to do that twice. The problem is that when I do it twice, the do is basically like a block. Yeah, it's a debugger for Ruby. So what will happen is it's the first time expected, which you can see is an event called lesson completed, right? Because of the analytics tracking. When I continue, the second one is an event called unit completed. My trouble is that it's happening inside the same block. So the first time it passes, I basically need to test that args1 is equal to the lesson completed, and then the second time I need to test that it's unit completed, and it happens that order. So I'm like, what's the most sane way to do that? I could like literally put a counter on the outside, and when like the counter equals 1, it's the first one. When the counter equals 2, it's the second one. I'm up the counter.
Yeah.
That feels janky.
You guys have the relationship set up. That's dope. But you don't have to do that. That's what we're about to get into, explaining the FP, the FK, the PK, and the one-to-many relationships. Cool. Let's start with this group. How many tables did you guys have?
With 3 tables.
3 tables. What with 3 tables?
3 tables for users.
Okay.
Table for hosts. And table for comments.
Table for comments. Cool. You guys have something different? What you got?
We were just trying to build one table based off of the columns of the table, instead of mapping it out. So we just did the wrote the table like a specific subreddit table to look like. So we have the ID of the post, the text of the post, the upvotes, downvotes, and the comments. That's what we put in one table.
Comments are in one table?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. How many tables do you guys have on Overlay?
We had a user table and a content table. Users with ID, name, email, password, karma, subs, posts, comments, and messages. And the content, you had ID, subreddit, the OP, title, tags, upvote count, content, and then the comments.
We probably built this table, so
Yeah.
I know. Percent the same fields.
What did you guys get?
So we had 4 tables. It was kind of on the premise that everyone else had. We had users, and then we also had a content table. And inside the content table, broke it down, and then we had another table in that, which was post, and then another table inside post, which was comments.
Content. Inside of content, you have posts and comments?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Or there was a relationship between them. They're not in the table.
What relationship?
So basically, the comments obviously would be there. It would be a table with its own ID, title, post ID, user ID, and body. It would get certain relationships, such as like the user. Then that would also be under, when you make a post, it would pull up that table, the comments. It would look to see what table
Okay.
comments it had.
Alright. What you guys get? How many tables?
3. Users, messages, and comments.
Users, messages, and comments. If you have relationships between all 3, I see. What are they?
So I just did this based off of what I was thinking, but Bill also has a comment on users' messages. But I think the users would be a one-to-many relationship, and then messages to comments would have a one-to-many. So one message could have many comments. One user could leave many comments. And then user messages, many users could have many messages. Do you want to explain your thought process there?
Yeah, so like one user can have many messages, but one message can also have many users, assuming that they can like tag and include other people in the message. If that's how it works. I don't know if you read it.
I think because we have have specifically a user author key value that a user, there are only one user to one to many messages. Like if we're specifically.
How many should I give it? Should I create?
All right. So, what I want to point out here is, like, you can spend a lot of time defending like what you did. It's important that you think about it though. The more time you spend planning, that's gross. The more time you spend planning out what you're going to be doing in your project, the less time you will spend coding, and that seems counterintuitive. The sooner you hop into like slapping together a database without thinking about how much stuff can go into it, the more trouble you're going to get into. And again, what's silly about this stuff is everybody thinks about this in a different way. And if you can defend it and you can make it work, that's fine. What Peter's going to talk about in a second is I can create a many-to-many or a one-to-many, and I can make my database that way. Nothing like is really set in stone. If I can defend the relationship, I can design it that way. Let's go through real quick users. So the way I would think about this is 3 base tables. In reality, you can go 8, 10, 12. How many did you guys have when you did patch?
I think we had, like, we just did 10.
Yeah.
I believe.
You can have a bunch. But let's say users, posts, and comments. So if we have a user table, can a user have multiple posts?
Yes.
Yes. Cool. And can a post have multiple comments?
Yes.
Yes. Cool. Can a user have multiple comments?
Yes.
Cool. Can the post have multiple comments from the same user?
Yes.
Yes.
Are the posts given unique IDs?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So no post is ever going to be the same, regardless if it's from the same user. Well, yeah. But
Repost.
every time you create that post, it's going to give it a unique ID. What is the one thing that you will always need, regardless of how many tables you have in each table? Yeah, primary key. That's right. What about foreign keys? When will we use those foreign keys?
You go to another table, defining a relationship between 2 tables.
Defining a relationship between 2 tables. Which, all right, where, someone give me that's a tiny ass marker. We're going over here. I feel like this will be perfect for the video.
Oh, hey, I got you, actually. Check me out.
Dope. Anyway, so you have a cool user, post, COMMENT, comment. So we said that one user can have multiple posts, multiple messages. What are we like? Which way is this relationship going to go? One to many. Who said that? Cool. So which one, where, how, so, why?
One user to many posts.
So one user can have many posts. Okay. Say it again. One user can have many comments.
One post can have many comments.
One post. Oops. Yeah. One post can have many comments. That's reversed.
One comment and one user.
One comment can have one user. So that's the way that one's formatted right there. Is this all the relationships that we need? So when I pull a user, how am I going to get all of his posts or that person's posts and comments? By his ID. So
the user's ID.
Yes.
By the user's ID.
So did the PK the FK, this marker stinks.
Yeah.
Like bad. So Does the user ID, the foreign key, go in both of these? Yeah? Phil thinks yeah. Nobody else. No yes, no no. This is good?
No, just to go against
Woo!
Phil.
I'm going to ask you why.
Okay.
That's it. Cool. Phil, why do you think this is right?
Because it would be nice if I could find everything that I touch without having to search through function ID. Because there was one continuous ID across everything that we did. And then you can do whatever, 500 key or whatever it is to another different post. But that way, it would be to pull the user information is just one key across all.
Okay? Promise.
For his reasoning, I'm halfway thinking that he would perform to the user.
Okay? So the user would have the foreign key constraint of post or comment or.
I don't know why I feel that way.
Okay.
Well, and the way that we talk about setting up our tables, each of our tables that has a message or a comment has the user author in it. So as soon as they comment, their name is going to be associated with that post or comment. So they already will have touched those tables. Like we already have that data.
Yeah. So that's the way I think about it. When I first did this as a student, I tried to make a join table, or I tried to have the posts and comments be together. Like I said, you can make these as convoluted or as broad as possible, as long as you can defend creating your database this way. I would say that the user creates, and you can go through and find a user, bring back his that person's comments, that person's posts. A post will always have all of the comments attached to it, and we will also assign it the user as well. Peter, what do you think?
One of the things that you can use as a phrase to consider where a foreign key belongs is the word belongs to, or the words. And in fact, there are frameworks, there are what we call ORMs, Object Relational Management Systems, which are responsible for letting you represent your database, right? And they actually have what they call domain-specific language, or DSL, that refers to words like belongs to. So what this means is that I can actually use the word belongs to say that a post belongs to a user, right? A comment belongs to a user. A comment also belongs to a post. And so the word belongs to is, or like the phrase belongs to, is super useful when you're first approaching this consideration, because if something A belongs to something B, something A has to have the foreign key on its table set. So again, I'll say that because it's a little bit tricky to consider. If I have something that belongs to me, that thing should have the foreign key. Peter ID needs to live on it, right? So it throws up the R's. So yeah, belongs to becomes the phrase that you can repeat in your head. And then the other one is has many, right? So belongs to and has many. I think you were writing some of that stuff earlier. But the idea is that then you can talk about a user's relation to a post, right? So if a user has many posts, that means that it's very likely that the post has the foreign key to the user. But the wording and the phrasing changes depending on what kind of table you're considering when you're having a discussion. So if I'm having a discussion about a user table, I'm going to say a user has many posts. A user has many comments, right? If I'm having a discussion about a post table, I will say a post belongs to a user, but a post has many comments. So when you're considering your own ERDs, which you're going to be drawing out, and when you're considering your own database designs, keep those two phrases in mind. Has many, belongs to. And again, it belongs to probably has the foreign key of the thing it belongs to on its actual columns, right? If it has many, chances are
the other thing has the foreign key on its table. Does anyone have any questions about considering like belongs to or owns by? Sweet.
So this is something that takes, I think some people it just clicks immediately, like their brains are wired this way and it just makes sense. For me, it took a lot of just trial and error and doing it over and over again. I used to always get the crow's feet backwards. I could always, in my head, it got like jumbled and turned around that a post had many users. So taking the time to practice this stuff, sit down and writing out the Reddit clone, sitting down and creating user stories for Instagram or whatever app you're working on is the best way to go about sorting it out. It just takes practice. I think that it's hard to just like talk about conceptually many-to-many joins and one-to-many relationships without having to do it. But this is the best way that I know how. I was just talking about the Reddit clone.
Ooh, can I do a bonus challenge? Can I have like a minute bonus challenge?
Yeah.
All right. So, given what we know about conceptualizing your database in your head and basing it off of a user story, and let's not do this in groups. Let's just, I'm going to have you guys think in your head, and I'm probably going to point at something random. Imagine that you get a user story, which is that as a user, I would like to be able to follow another user's posts and comments. So your product manager comes down, this is a really cool social app you got put together, but man, it would be nice if I found somebody that was really cool and I could keep track of them, right? So you're going to have to make a change to your schema somehow, and you're going to have to add a table in here, right? So everyone take like a minute, around there, and this is by yourself. You just sort of like think for a second about what kind of table I could add, what kind of foreign keys it might have.
I like it. I like it a lot. You just sit down right here.
Yeah. Yes.
All right.
So we don't bias it. I'm going to close my eyes. Patrick's going to spin me while my fingers out, right?
No.
A table, correct.
So the table pool would probably be is follower.
I love this. Have it is follower table. Followees, so follow, we could say, right? Follow ID. So the important distinction here is that we can have a table which actually has two foreign keys on it to the exact same table. And you can have a table with a foreign key to two completely different tables on it, right? The idea here being that a table can have multiple foreign keys to many things. The same way a comment had a foreign key to a post, the comment had a foreign key to a user. I can actually have a table which has two foreign keys to the exact same table, right? Because these are actually both user IDs. I had to name it differently, like this is a user ID. So if I were to say my user ID, let's say I have 4 users in the system, 1 through 4, right? And I'm ID 4, right? Or I'm ID 1, I'm literally setting number 4. If I'm ID 1 and I want to follow users 3 and 4, what this would mean is I would have to have 2 records in my isFollower database, or my table. And it would have to look like, if this was user ID, right? And this is the followed ID. Then this would have to be me, 1, right? Foreign key of 3, and then another record, which is again me, 1, and the foreign key of 4. So now I've built a database which represents the concept of a user following somebody else, and I've populated it with information. It's me, my user ID is 1, and we know that I'm now following user 1. This is important, or sorry, user 3 and user 4. This is important because if you construct a query out of this that says like, okay, give me all of the posts of the person I'm following, right? That means I have to say, go, what's my user ID? It's 1, right? And then I need to join it to the post table and say, give me all of the posts where the foreign key is in the set of follow IDs that I have on my isFollower table. So I'll say that again because that was a lot of jargon. There's a lot of gobbledygook, right? But basically, I have to say, join from the isFollower table to the post table, where the user ID foreign key on the post table equals the follow ID on my isFollower table, and make sure that the user ID on my isFollower table is equal to 1, because that's me. So the way that I just said that out loud is, like, I declared what I wanted, right? I said, I want to have posts, and they're joined to the isFollower table. The rules for that join are the follow ID equals the user ID on the post, and I want only the ones where the user ID is 1. I declare that as what I want, right? It also starts to sound an awful lot like what an actual SQL statement looks like when you write them out. Because when I write out a SQL statement, I'm declaring what I want. And so the term for SQL as a language is actually called a declarative language. You write out the thing that you expect to get as the results, and it gives it to you. JavaScript, like, for example, is not a declarative language. And sometimes you'll hear that term, but it's important to kind of remember then that SQL classifies as this thing called a declarative language. I declare what I want, it gives me what I want. That's a lot. So I don't expect like it's all come together right away. The concept for this table, by the way, when it has 2 foreign keys like this, is that it's a many-to-many. So remember when I said it belongs to, it has many? So the third one here, belongs to, has many, and many-to-many. Many-to-manys, if you ever hear that term, it necessitates 3 tables. If I have table A and I have table B, right? In order for A to have many B's and B's to have many A's, I need to have another table in here that's got an A ID and a B ID on it. A third table shows up. The crow's feet look like this. And now we can represent the concept of an A having many B's and a B having many A's. And so therefore we call it a many-to-many. So again, the 3 phrases to remember when you're conceptualizing this: has many, belongs to, and many-to-many. And with those 3 things, you can represent all related information in the universe. Which is cool. Yes.
So when 2 tables have a many-to-many, they always have a third table that has no 2
That's correct. There's no other way to conceptualize the concept of one thing having many of another and another having many of the thing without a third table in between that just stores the IDs of the 2. So for example, like that we deal with is the concept of like enrollments in a cohort, right? So in our systems, we have to be able to keep track of who has access to which content. And a user can have many cohorts, but a cohort can have many users, right? So I have to represent this in the concept of a table we actually just call a cohort user. And by the way, there's a bunch of idiomatic methods for naming these things. So when you're talking about naming tables, like a lot of times it's just like if I have like users and cohorts, the name of my table that joins them together is the user cohort table, right? Because it represents the concept of them being together. And so this is like probably the hardest concept to approach in this. Like it makes sense a thing can have many things, a user can have many posts, but the idea of there being a many-to-many is sometimes a little bit difficult. Just remember that if you see 2 foreign keys on a table, and that's about it, maybe some timestamps to tell you when it was made, you're probably dealing with something that
Q. So you'll get into join statements versus many-to-many tables, or between join statements, join tables, inner joins, outer joins, as you start laying out your data and deciding how are they going to populate. What I wanted you guys to get out of this was to start thinking in terms of like full stack. There is a lot of work that goes into creating this, from front end to back end to full CRUD to how is the user going to interact with it, and it all comes down to like how you see your data interacting with everything else. And your perspective on how that stuff interacts is going to shape how the app comes together. So the best way to get perspective on any of this is to share in groups, talk to other people. We went around the class and we broke everybody up into groups, and everybody still had a different idea of what the base Reddit MVP should look like. The only way to like expand your point of view is to interact with people who don't see things the same way you do and learn from that. We'll get a lot of practice in 2 weeks when we're doing the group projects on user stories as well as agile workflow. On Friday, you will also have to follow user stories, not so much as write your own. But what I want you guys to just like be familiar with are these concepts. When you start to do your own applications, whatever it is, start thinking in these terms. Maybe you start a Trello board, maybe you start a Pivotal Tracker, maybe you start Waffle.io and collaborate with homies and just start assigning tasks. The sooner you start thinking about this in like a global sense, the better your app will become and the better developer you will be. I want to take any questions you guys have about like user stories, the trackers that we use for them, how to format a data table, anything like that.
Do you think it's better with writing user stories to start at a very focused directive and build outward, or start at a very broad directive and build inward?
So when you're planning or when you're thinking about all the things that have to be done, you should think about as many tasks as possible. The idea with user stories is to get as granular as possible. If you think it's simple, try to simplify it even further. That's the best way to start, because what ends up happening is you create a user story and then you'll give it tasks. So how am I going to accomplish this task? Trello board?
Yep.
Dang, full circle. So Patrick and I created this a while ago, and there is multiple tasks for one user story. So simply put, as a user, I can view all posts on Reddit on a single homepage. And now everything that goes into that, decide on the tech stack. Like you have to create the Express server, you have to create the front end, you have to deploy it, you have to create GitHub repos, you have to decide what your data is going to look like, you have to make sure that like the relationships are correct. There is a bunch of stuff that goes into it. And the broader you can think to get all your ideas down, and is like the best place to start, and then make it more granular from there. What ends up happening is people often think that like they just overlook it. I know how to do this, or they don't like dive deep enough into understanding how everything works, and then it ends up screwing people up. All the time when we were in my groups, we're like, oh, that's the easiest thing that we have to do, and we thought it was easy because we didn't understand it enough. So like, just keep refining.
I mean, you'll notice on this as well, like this is one user story. This has tasks both for the front end and the back end, right? Just because like you don't need separate user stories for the front end or for the back end. We're building in features, right? So the feature is that we now have a website that you can view all the posts on a single homepage, right? That is the main core feature. So like, okay, how do we do that? Break it down into a bunch of smaller tasks that all feed into this one user story. User story is super simple. The tasks aren't necessarily, right? But the goal is clear.
Cool. And it takes a while to get here. Like every time when I set up to a project, whether it was group or solo, I was never able to correctly decide like all of the things that was going to trip me up, and I never was able to think about everything. just because that comes with experience and it comes with time. The more you do it, the wider your perspective gets, the more you become aware of. You're still not gonna like give yourself enough time to complete it. What up?
Do you guys know of any like cool software that would like help us create these like
Draw.io.
Say it again?
Draw.io.
Draw.io. There's
the dopest flowchart table diagram builder ever.
There's another one. I forget what it is. So that helps nobody.
There's one on Hacker News that's really cool because just let you scribble it. You could like loosely draw a square and it turned it into a square.
Lucid chart?
I don't remember.
There's a few of them out there, and a lot of them are free. But dope.
So you just pick one, and it also has all the line tools that you'll need for that type of.
Oh, sick.
Draw.io. And
Nice.
you can connect it to your Google Drive, and it'll automatically throw it up in there, save those images. You can save them as PDFs if you need. It's pretty sweet.
Cool. We will also be getting into ERDs and writing them yourself throughout this. Like we're going to do a warm-up tomorrow that has to do with creating an ERD for like real data. You guys are going to get practice with it. What else? What up?
Can the relationships be changed like dynamically throughout like the life cycle of your app?
No.
No.
Yeah, what you like, you will. That's why like it's super important to spend as much time as possible in the beginning laying out all of the possible scenarios. Because once a database is created and the tables are made, especially in the real world, you're not going to go and like drop a production application to make new tables. It's a super pain in the ass. So the more like in-depth you can think about it, the better off you'll be. You can't just switch foreign keys and how they interact. Think about all of the seeded data before it and how like those things point and call each other.
But that's only in relational database, right?
Yeah, in non-relational databases, it's just all one big basically a JSON file, one big object that comes back with weird like UIDs. Cool. What else? Dope. That is like I think the third, getting into foreign keys, primary keys, a little bit more the ERDs, and how to start making a project. Dank.